All right, we're gonna go clean a gun. This is a topic that comes up a lot. I think it's something that people get really serious about, and it is good. I actually am one of these weird people that likes cleaning guns, so I get it. But I don't think it's as complicated as sometimes people will make it out to be. They'll try to sell you a bunch of stuff or a bunch of guide rods and special things for bores and whatever. I don't think you need all that stuff. So we're gonna keep it super simple. We're gonna go clean this DR920P. I chose the DR920P because there's more going on there as far as cleaning it. So we're on our way to a conference room that's hopefully empty. I guess we'll find out in a minute. And we're gonna take this thing apart and we're gonna clean it. As far as equipment goes, I'm gonna just use some Q-tips and a toothbrush and a rag and something to clean the bore, and that's all you really need, okay? All right. And this will work, perfect. Okay, so first I'll just show you what I got here. I just grabbed some stuff. Obviously you can use a proper bore brush and rod, and usually you would also have a jag or something to push it through. To clean the bore today, I'm just gonna use a bore snake, so this is kind of like the lazy man's answer to cleaning bores. For rifles, you need a fancy Dewey guide rod like this. For handguns, I think kind of any guide rod will be fine, or cleaning rod rather. Some lubricant, we use this Lucas oil. There's lots that work fine. I got a few Q-tips. I grabbed one of our shadow tools. They're on the website if you want to buy one. Just helps to take the DRP apart. A toothbrush and a rag. I kind of think these microfiber towels are good, but a t-shirt, anything, all that stuff's fine. And then you'll maybe, not necessarily want some kind of you know, cleaner lubricant preservative type, a spray or a solvent that you can use to get like the really tough areas, which are fairly rare. Okay, I said earlier lubrication is a good thing. Oh, by the way, obviously we're gonna clear the gun thoroughly. There's an enormous number of guns that go off every year that are unloaded. So let's make sure it's actually unloaded, okay? Okay. What I was going to say was, earlier I mentioned lubrication and how I think lubrication is, in general, a really good thing. One of the reasons it's a really good thing is it also just gets in there as carbon is being generated in the firing cycle, and parts are therefore much easier to wipe off. Okay, the carbon is, or the oil is rather just, is kind of keeping all that carbon sort of floating. So that's another advantage to keeping your gun lubricated. All right, this is a DR920P. So I'm gonna push out the pin on the side here. This one's been shot a lot, so it comes out nice and easy. Just as a reminder, when DR920Ps are brand new, or even CR920Ps are brand new, the comps are tight. 5, 10, 15 rounds later, it's much more loose, okay? So, you know, I would say avoid the temptation to bring your new gun home and immediately take it apart. Go shoot it first. If it's a compensated gun, it'll be a lot easier to take apart after. Okay. A note on the DR920P really fast. So just as a reminder, you've got the pin, you've got the O-ring, and then there's also the spring in there. Don't lose the spring. The spring is, you know, is important because without the spring, the pin walks out. So that's a good point too. I don't know what it is. It seems like carpet manufacturers make carpet that's designed to hide gun parts. We have like little black dots in our carpet here. It's like, why did we pick that? I don't know. A white surface like this, a white towel, something like that is a good idea because, again, it makes it easier to see all the little bits and pieces. Okay, so I have the comp off the DRP. I'll just mention cleaning this really quick. So there's really not a lot you need to do here. The only comment is people will they'll just go crazy trying to clean out the inside of a compensator in this port. And a lot of that stuff is just really hard to get off. And a lot of it also, you'll think it's like carbon, and some of it's just erosion. All of that burned gunpowder and gas hitting the walls of the comp, they do start to erode the comp over time. Okay, I mean it's never going to fall apart, but it is altering the surface of the walls. So you'll be digging around in there forever. You're not going to clean all that out. Just wipe it down. You know, get the big pieces out, and you're done. Okay, all right. Barrel first. So again, I mentioned earlier that when the gun is oiled well, it's a lot easier to wipe stuff down. So I just start by wiping everything down really good, okay? You'll get most of it off if the gun is properly lubricated. After that, let's grab the brush, and this is like the powerful gun cleaning technique. This is the trick for everything. You take the rag and you put it over the brush. I don't know why this works so well, but it does. So you can brush the lugs on the bottom, certainly brush the ramp and around the chamber, get the worst of it off, and then I like to use the toothbrush with just the bristles to get a couple of areas. One is right here in front of the locking surface. So you don't want anything in there because that's gonna maybe keep the gun from going all the way into battery. Unlikely, but maybe. The other thing is around the back of the barrel, this part that comes off the back right there, that's a little more tightly fit in the slot in the slide. So you wanna kinda clean that too because you don't want anything in the corners there that could impede your lockup. But as far as the barrel's lockup and feeding goes, it's really here, here, and then the ramp. The ramp should of course be clean as well, okay? So you can use your toothbrush and kind of get in the cracks, but that's what really matters. All right, so I'm gonna call this barrel pretty clean. The bore, I usually like to take my CLP or cleaner or whatever and give it a shot down the barrel, and then I just like set it off to the side and let it sit, okay? Because that stuff can work in there for a minute while I clean the rest of the gun. Okay, so now the slide. Again, I start by taking the toothbrush and putting the rag over it like this, and I just go crazy in there and try to get like the worst of it off, all right? So I'm getting down inside the roof of the slide, I'm getting the slide rails, and then also the breech face is really important. So I'm gonna use the back of the toothbrush here on my rag, and I go down inside in the breech face, and I really focus on the breech face. Again, thinking about reliability, the area that probably matters the most is the breech face and the extractor notch. So this whole area inside here is pretty important. After I've gotten the worst of it, I would probably also take the CLP, and you may want to cover your optic lens like that. I would probably also take the CLP and just maybe give it a shot right there. Not a ton. You don't want to spray it down in the firing pin channel. And I take my brush and I'm going to focus on the extractor notch and the corners of the breech face and the surface of the breech face, and I'm going to get that all really clean and really smooth. After that, again, put the rag over it and wipe it down. And now the most critical area of the slide is now clean, okay? The breech face is probably the most critical area of the slide, all right? After that, you might use the bristles of the brush to kind of brush around the firing pin safety. That usually kind of gets a little hard to clean with the rag. And that's pretty much it, folks. I mean, you've gotten the worst of it. I guess the only other area might be the slide rails. Just take your bristles and run them down the slide rails. Again, not really necessary, but it just gets whatever out of there. Slide is done, as far as I'm concerned. Slide's done, okay? You might get some Q-tips. This is a DRP, so it has these lightning cuts. You might get some Q-tips down in there. This looks pretty dirty. I don't think anybody's really gotten this before. Okay, so you might get some Q-tips down in there, but I'd say it's done. I'm gonna add one other thing that's not an every time you clean thing, but that is a good practice to do every few thousand rounds, all right? Every few thousand rounds, you can take the firing pin out and just make sure the channel is clear of brass flakes and debris and stuff like that. So we've done this before. You take your punch, you stick it in that little slot right in front of the firing pin. If you push down on that, it unlocks the back plate and you can take the back plate off, firing pin comes out. I wouldn't do anything more than just wipe it down like this and stick a Q-tip down there, making sure you don't leave any debris, okay? Meaning chunks of like cotton. Guns come back here sometimes and there's pieces of cotton in them from Q-tips. You're better off not cleaning your gun than putting a foreign body somewhere inside of it, okay? So that's all I would do. If you want to do that every few thousand rounds, you can. It's just insurance, and you don't want to lubricate the firing pin assembly. You leave it like that. You don't want lubricate to get down inside the channel, okay? All right, so that slide is done. The barrel, I put that stuff down it earlier, so it's been working on it this whole time. I'm gonna drop my bore snake down it and pull it, and it actually looks really clean. You can do it a few more times if you want. If you want to see if a barrel is clean, you just kind of hold it up to a light surface like a window or a white wall or something. I wouldn't shine a flashlight down it. It can be so bright that it's like kind of blinding and you actually don't see what you're trying to see. So like any kind of reflective surface should be enough, okay? Last is the frame. Hey, again, not much to the frame. I would do that same technique of taking my toothbrush and putting it inside my rag, and I would just kind of gently get down in here. Don't go crazy. This is mostly cosmetic. I mean, it's like feel-good cleaning. Nothing in here is going to really affect function. You're more likely to affect function by, like, you know, hooking on the trigger bar or on a spring or something and like bending something. So just be careful. You can brush the slide rails like this, just super fast if you want. Not really necessary. And that's pretty much it, okay? Frame is clean. Okay, reassembly. This is probably the more important part of this whole deal. I'm going to use this thing to put the oil, but we're going to just talk about like where you put a drop or two of oil. I'd put a drop or two of oil on the top of the slide, kind of like that, something like that, because it'll get all over inside there and be distributed as the gun fires. We put a dab right here on the surface of the firing pin safety, okay? I like to put a little bit across the top of the stripper rail, just a little bit of residue. I don't know, I think it makes the gun feed a little easier. It doesn't hurt to put a little bit on this bump here. This is where the connector rides. So just putting like a little drop right there can just help ease the connector's travel across that surface. So I'm aiming, as I put that on there, I'm sort of aiming for down inside this crack. It'll get distributed in there as the connector goes back and forth. And then the last spot is if you put just a little dab at the back of the slide rails like that, then when the gun goes back together, it'll be distributed across the slide rail and you're done, okay? For the barrel, again, very simple. A dab right there at the lockup surface is really all you need. I also, because again, I like lubrication on these things, I tend to just kind of put it all over the place on the outside surface of the barrel, okay? It makes it a lot easier to clean next time. All right, barrel goes back in. Guide rod, you don't need to do anything with the guide rod. It is typically already pretty lubricated because that lubricant kind of gets distributed down there. If you want, you can put a dab or two on it like that, but you don't really need to. They're usually pretty well lubricated, okay? After that, we can reassemble, and then I'll put the comp back together as well. Actually, it makes more sense for me to do that with this off so you can see it a little better. Okay, for the compensator, the main thing, folks, is if you have a DRP, just make sure that you put the comp pin in correctly, the spring rather, incorrectly, okay? So you want the spring to go in like that, not like this, okay? So I'm gonna turn it upside down. The back section is here, it's facing down, and I'm gonna insert it directly into that little channel right there, oops, like that, okay? All right, at this point, I can put the compensator back on the barrel. Make sure your O-ring is in place first. I put it on the barrel. I think it's easier to do it that way. And then you should be able to put your pin in pretty easily and center it, and the compensator is reinstalled, okay? Reassemble the frame. Again, I just distributed all that oil on the rails. I'd rack it a few times. Wipe it down. Whatever extra oil residue was on your rag or on your gun is going to get kind of put over the surface of the gun, the finish of the gun, and that's what you want. If you shoot a ton, sometimes our texture gets kind of gunky. You know, it just gets dirt and grit and whatever in it. You can use a little bit of like simple green or Windex or something if you want, and a brush, scrub brush to kind of scrub it and just dry it off. It's plastic, you're not going to hurt it. So you can sort of use whatever, but a stiff bristle brush and a little bit of like soap or simple green or whatever, like I said, will be all you need. Just keep it out of the metal components on the upper section of the gun. I didn't talk about magazines. I do believe in disassembling magazines periodically, wiping the springs, wiping the followers, wiping the tubes. I think that's something a lot of people don't do, and it's fast and it's good insurance. So I think we have some other videos on how to clean magazines, so take a look at that. That's my summary though. Don't go spend a bunch of money on cleaning stuff. Keep it simple, and your gun is gonna run a very long time if you just keep it lubricated and keep an eye on parts and replace things if they're needed. But that's the thing about cleaning, is you get to kind of get in there and see what's going on. So that's a big part of it too. That's all we've got for this week, and we'll see you next time.